Hey guys, and welcome back to the official podcast of Development Unplugged. And I'm here with my dear girlfriend, Des. And, well, let's move your mic a little closer, because sometimes you speak a little quietly. So today we're going to talk about something very important, which is how to recalculate your route. And I have a phone that has sound on it. Okay. So basically what we want to talk about today is how to recalculate your route. So, you're in your car, you're driving around, and you have your GPS on, and there's traffic. What does your GPS do? Well, it tells you there's this faster route or this route without roadblocks or this alternate route that will get you there faster, right? And you can configure your GPS in many different ways. You can configure it in ways where you save money. Maybe I don't want toll roads, or maybe I want to go the scenic route. So you can choose, that gives you 3 or 4 options. Which route do you want? And in your personal life, do you ever take the time to recalculate your route, or are you stuck forcing a route that's not working? How many times do you get stubborn and insistent? I've already invested this long in this relationship, or I've invested this long in this career, or I've invested this long into this path, or I've already trained myself this much in this way, and now I want to change. Now I want to do this, but it's too late. How many times do we kind of get stuck in a path that's not working? Have you ever gotten stuck in a path that didn't work for you?
Yeah, a lot of times.
A lot of times, right? And we just overextend getting out of there. We overextend it because we justify to ourselves why we're holding on to a path that's not working. And we're very good at that. What type of things do we end up telling ourselves?
It depends, because if it's a person, you make excuses for that person in order to stay in that path with them.
Yeah.
If it's like,
if it's a career,
especially, for example, if your parents tell you, oh, you have to study this one, you have to stay here. I know lots of people that have chose a career that pull themselves and force themselves for 4 years to get through the career, and then once they finished it, they're not working in their field because they just don't want to, and they justify it by saying, oh, there's really no jobs for this career, or this and that, and then you just wasted 4 years of your life.
It's fascinating how many reasons we use and how many justifications we use to basically stay in a path that doesn't work for us. And yes, sometimes you have to make a change that generates a certain level of stress or tension in the people around you. You, for example, about a year ago, you were kind of stuck for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And you had to make some big changes because those 6 months, while you were preparing yourself mentally for certain changes, you were no longer advancing fast enough for your goals.
Yeah.
And what did you do?
Well, when I got stuck, the 6 months that I was stuck, I don't even know how to explain it. It was a moment in my life where I wasn't going as fast as I wanted to. I wasn't getting better. I wasn't getting healthier as fast as I wanted to, but I had plans for my life. Yeah. If we go back to when I was 17 and I was just graduating from high school, my last year of senior year, I had plans for my life. I was supposed to go to dental school. I had managed to graduate because I wasn't gonna be able to graduate, and so I worked my ass off my last senior year to get the GPA that I needed to go to dental school. I passed the exam for dental school, and I was in, and I had my whole life, I had it planned already. I was gonna graduate. I graduated high school at 17. I was gonna finish dental school when I was 21, and I was gonna start working. I was gonna have my own dental office and stuff like that. But all of that changed when I got sick. I got sick for 2 years the first time, and I had to let go of that, of going to dental school. So ever since I was little, I wanted to be a fashion designer. So while I was waiting for the year to come for dental school, I went into this fashion course at this university. And as well, then I decided to take in fashion, but my family did not feel like it was a profession. So I was told we're not paying for it. So then I became an English teacher in order to pay what was like the university that I had to go to. So I never wanted to be a teacher. I hated being a teacher. I thought it was very easy because I already knew English, and I was like, why? I don't want to be in a classroom. I don't have patience for kids and this and this and that. So I made a bunch of these excuses.
She's actually very good with kids, but yes.
And I made all of these excuses. And then one day I was just like, okay, I'll just go for it. I need to pay college. So then I got sick the second time. And what happened the second time, I had already planned again when I got better and I got a job and I was working 12 hours a day with no break, no days off. And I already had planned, you know what, I'm going to work here for this certain amount of years. I'm going to graduate from fashion school. I'm going to have my own store, this and this and that. And I had my whole life planned again. And what happened again, due to my eating disorder, I got sick for the second time. And that was a little bit over a year ago. And throughout this whole time, I hated myself because I had missed out on my high school graduation. I had missed out on the 4 years. If I wouldn't have gotten sick by this year, last year, I would have graduated from dental school. And seeing all of my classmates back then graduate hurt me so much. I started deleting everybody because I really, really hated myself. And that's the thing. When some of us, we like to plan things, but we don't realize that we get very angry when things don't go our way. And that's something that I've been trying to work at.
Yeah, and it's funny because oftentimes we have this plan, right? We have this direction. We picture a lifestyle, we picture career, we picture a family life that we want, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And we have that kind of guiding plan, right? And we have sometimes a very specific plan. But exactly, life happens and life pulls you in different directions. Life sometimes surprises you, and in that process, you have to be able to adapt. And for example, you were smart. Like you were like, okay, well, this isn't working right now. Well, I'm going to be productive in where it can be. So I'm going to focus. Maybe dental school is not working right now. So I will keep working on, I'll do fashion right now. And then that isn't working. Well, I'll do a little bit of working on myself right now. And you've always kind of taken steps forward, even if sometimes you have to take steps backwards to reflect, to get to know yourself, to reevaluate certain things. But you've been quite good at constantly taking steps forward. Yeah. But it is a process of identifying, you know what, this is where I want to get. And this is my tentative plan of where how I think I'm going to get there. But I will be open to the fact that life will surprise me. I mean, look at this pandemic.
Yes, and I think that what you're saying is definitely good, that you have to be open to the fact that things are going to change. If things wouldn't have changed for me, if everything would have gone as I planned it, the first time, not getting sick both of the times, going to dental school, I think right now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I wouldn't have met Yannick. I wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I would probably still be living with my parents. I'd probably be still at home, still, I think I would not even have a job because as a person that recently graduated, and bam, the pandemic hits, I think I wouldn't even have a job at this point. And I think I would be in a really, really dark place. And also one thing, when we're open to opportunities, we're open to meeting new people. We're open to different paths. And it's actually quite beautiful because we think we know it all when we plan everything and, we don't need this, we don't need that. But throughout this whole journey of me being sick, yes, I wouldn't go through it again. I would try to avoid it as much as possible.
Been there, done that.
But at this point, I can't do anything about it. Like I went through those years. I wasted those years, yes, but I learned from them. And even though I hate myself.
And one thing right now you use the word waste, but how many times have you not also looked at it? You know what? During that time, I found myself. During that time, I worked on myself. During that time, I improved a lot of things. And while it didn't look like it, you spent 6 months finding yourself in a way. Like, that's when you discovered, vision boards and made up a kind of plan. But the difference was when you started doing vision boards, it was not about how you would get there. It was exactly where do I want to be.
Yeah.
And that changed a lot for you because then you became more agile. Back when you were like, this is my path, I'm holding on to it, and I want to do it, and I'm going to hate myself if it doesn't work. The moment you switched over to like, okay, this is where I want to be. This is the life I want. These are the things I want. How do I get there? And that's when you got more creative.
Yeah, that's when I got more creative. I started my YouTube channel. I even have my store. I didn't need to graduate from fashion to have my own store. Like, you helped me through the process. You helped me create it.
DesiCoco.com if you want to buy some merch designed by her, feel free.
But I didn't need to go to college for that. And I thought, okay, I have to graduate from college because at age 21, 22, I have to have my store. And I thought that I needed to go I needed to finish school in order to have a store. And see, these are things that we don't know when we create plans.
No.
We don't know the surprises we're going to have along. And I wouldn't change anything. I feel like I just wouldn't change anything because everything that happened, even though I hated myself for years of being sick and putting my family through uncomfortable situations and putting myself through uncomfortable situations, not to mention how many times I was in the hospital, ambulance, emergency rooms, seizures, all of that was painful. But there's nothing I can do about it. I can't go back and change it. So at this point, I either choose I make something positive over it or I make something negative and I just hate myself for it. But I choose to learn from that. I choose to, okay, maybe I those years I took a step back, but it's okay because it created me with the person that I am at this moment. And you learn things that I wouldn't have learned if everything would have worked out back when I was in dental school, wanted to go to dental school.
For example, this pandemic, when it first hit, I got super stressed because like we have high expenses. We have not the cheapest lifestyle. I mean, we have a whole team of people that work here full time, and we live and work under the same roof, like the core team of Develop Your Element. Great social experiment, by the way. When the pandemic hit, we had to cancel all our plans, all our events, all our live events were canceled, all our in-person courses, all our travels were canceled too. I was going to go to Brazil and to Japan and different things and give classes. Those have generally speaking been very good markets for us. And all of a sudden, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. And I started beating myself up. I hated myself. I got into a bit of a minor depression in the beginning of the pandemic. And I really beat myself up. I was like, I hate myself. How did I put us in this situation? This is irresponsible. This is terrible. I hate this. This is the worst. Why are we in this situation? I don't like this. And I was like, I really beat myself up. But then I was like, okay, what do we have right now? Well, we have time. Okay, let's use the time wisely. Let's maximize the time. We have a team of people that have my back and okay, let's see how we can collaborate. But I really had to be open to recalculating our route for Develop Your Element, because my route, my bread and butter, the core success that we've had in Develop Your Element has always been traveling the world, giving classes all over the world in different languages, and that excitement of traveling and being in a place temporarily, that builds a lot of excitement. And when we realized we're going to be in the same place, we're going to be stuck indoors. How do we adapt to this? And it's like, well, where do I want to be? Well, I still have these plans for the business. I still have these plans personally. I still have these plans relationship-wise. How do I build up to that? And then I had to be like, you know what? I can still achieve my long-term goal, but my short to medium term is going to look a little bit different. So we started reorganizing the apartment. How many times did we not move desks around and computers around? And how many things have we not built? Next episode is actually going to be awesome. It's going to be how to maximize resources by building things. And
not to mention our bedroom.
Yeah, no, everywhere. This pandemic, we've optimized our space so much to improve productivity, improve regeneration, relaxation, comfort, harmony, in terms of we have several people living under one roof, so making sure everyone has their own space but also collaborative space. So it's been a wonderful period of building a better office and a better home, but at first I had to beat myself up. There was that process of guilt, shame, and frustration that I had to go through, but luckily I got out of it. It took me a little while, and it was thanks to the help of everyone on the team. But once I made the switch to, okay, let's not focus on what I can't do right now. Let's focus on what I can do. Okay, well, I can do this, I can do that. And that's when I started rebuilding everything. I started, doing online courses more. I started preparing and creating digital courses, like pre-recorded courses. Started rebuilding the website. Right now it's in progress. Like I've been working nonstop the last few days and rebuilding a whole new website for Develop Beyond. It's just been like, okay, I'm going to be productive. I'm going to make the changes I can make. And yes, I had to sell some things, to buy some different things. I had to trade some things. I had to build some things. I had to get creative with my resources to be able to maximize this time. But if we look at the quality of the content we're producing now, like if we look at the videos that we are posting every week on Facebook, for example, those videos are so much better than what we made a year ago. And that's something that became possible because the pandemic challenged us to do a better job with social media. And we're still learning. And yes, every time you get into a new chapter, what happens? You get insecure.
Yeah.
You feel like you're not ready.
Definitely. No, yeah, you feel very insecure. For example, when I quit my job.
Yep.
Recently, I quit my job of one of the schools that I was teaching class in, and I quit it because I was just not valued in this job. And I love the kids. I always when I leave a job, I always think about the kids. I always think about my students, and I always think like, oh, what if they don't get a teacher that understands their needs? And because me as a teacher, I like to break rules. I don't follow what they tell me in a lesson plan. Like if they tell me you're supposed to do this, and that, I never follow the rules because I teach how my students want to be taught, like how they can learn. If they learn visually, we're doing visually. If they learn through games, we're doing games. But I always let them know we're going to read, we're going to write, and it's not just going to be fun and games, and it's not just going to be the class like however you want it to be. It's going to be how I'm looking at you. We're going to have some fun, but we're also going to learn. And so it's always difficult for me to leave a school because I always think about what if the teacher that comes next doesn't see it that way, and it can go both ways. It can either go like very boring class, or it can go from letting them do whatever they want to do. And I guess it really it was really difficult for me to leave, but I got to a point that I was just like, I'm not being valued here. What did I do first? Like the week before me quitting, I was super stressed.
Yep.
I was crying during that whole week because I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to leave, but at the same time, I didn't want to leave my kids. And I was just like, I didn't know what to do. After I quit, I felt this sense of relief, but I was just like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? I just quit my job. And I do have private students, so it's okay. I'm still having income. It's just, I was just like, what are we going to do? But the most amazing thing is that now after it's been 2 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. 2 weeks later, I feel so much better. Yeah. Like this job, it was good at the beginning. It was very nice, but there was a lot of toxicity there. There was a lot of things that I try to communicate and they just weren't working. And the thing is, I already had planned to be in this job for a few years, a couple of years until I was able to, move on to the next thing. Because Yannick and I had other plans, and he told me, well, just stay here until this time, and then we have other plans. And we've planned a couple of things. And having to quit this job was, like you say, recalculating my way, because I already had, okay, well, this job is 5 minutes away. It's going to be very convenient for us for the next few years. But then having to leave it was like, oh my goodness, I feel lost. Yeah. And now I didn't realize how much this job was affecting my mental health. Yeah. I had not realized how much. You've
transformed as a person since you quit.
Since we quit, definitely.
And you say we quit, because, it was one of those things. Like, we identified this path is no longer the right route to where we want to be. Yes. And we could justify it as like, we need the money, where we're gonna find another job for Des during the pandemic, this and that. But really, when we looked at it, it was like, no, this is affecting her mental health. It's affecting our relationship also because we were very tense because of the stress.
Yeah.
You had more insecurities. It was difficult. And overall, it was just not like you weren't really making enough to make it worth it. Like I
Yeah.
told you, how much do you need to make at this job for it to be worth your time to stay right now? Like, what do you need to be paid to feel like this is worth it for you compared to other alternatives?
And then first, I think I said a number, and then I was like, I don't think there's a certain number I need to get paid to stay here because it
No.
was just so difficult for me.
And that's what happened when you went through that process. You're not, you know what? It's not even about money at this point. It's just this path isn't working for me. And then I was like, okay, let's recalculate the route. And I said, listen, it doesn't matter if we have to go through a period of more discomfort while finding a more comfortable path, but we have to take the first step. And the first step, I mean, also, for example, I myself also, look how productive I've been this week.
Since you quit.
Like,
since I quit.
Since you quit. Like, it was just, we were trying to make that job work. I mean, there was a lot of gratitude for the opportunity. There was a lot of, there were some good things there, but it just wasn't what you needed or what we needed right now. So when I was, when you managed to quit, it was like, okay, I'm now going to take over a little bit and like, I'll disburden you of some pressure, and I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna kick more ass. And the wonderful thing is, the moment you quit, it was like, okay, you are feeling better about yourself. You still have moments where you hate yourself for it and you beat yourself up, but that happens during moments of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it was a wonderful change.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, the stuff we're working on and the stuff we're planning, like you and I, we've been planning all kinds of fun stuff that we're building, and like you're going to be able to get back to building your store again. We're going to be doing some digital courses. Like, we've been able to create much more after getting rid of that roadblock.
Yeah.
And that was really being a big roadblock. And the thing we have to understand is, when you have roadblocks, the first thing should never be to quit. Right now, she's talking about how she quit and how that was liberating. Don't get the wrong idea. It's not about, this isn't working, quit.
No, I tried to make this job work since December.
Yeah.
I talked to whoever I needed to talk to. I let all my feelings out, and I literally tried since December. I waited and I waited, and I was very patient because I was willing to stay in that institute because I love my students. I love the school, and I was willing to stay there. And I tried since December, and I still didn't see any change. And then the second time around, when I started to express my feelings, I was basically told, you're being ungrateful. You should be happy that you even have a job throughout the pandemic. And that's the moment when I understood that, I was like, you know what? I don't need this. Like, I really don't need this. I don't need to be treated like this.
No, it was like, we made an effort. Like, how many times did you not have meetings with your boss? How many emails did we not send?
Yeah.
Before you were like, okay, I have done my job. I have been loyal. I have been committed. I have done everything in my power to make this work. Now, I also have more peace knowing that I went through these steps. I was ethical, I was communicative, I was open, I was transparent, I was direct, and I did my best effort to be collaborative. Now I know for sure it doesn't work, so now I can also leave with more peace. So in personal development and in your career and your life, be aware that neither extreme is good. If you quit things too easily, that's bad. If you over-justify things that don't work, that's also bad. You want to find that middle point where, you know what, I am willing to put up with certain things. I'm willing to be patient and tolerant and empathetic and see the good in sometimes difficult periods. And I'm not just going to quit out of like frustration, but also at the same time have the self-respect of being like, you know what, I need to respect myself right now, and right now this isn't working for me. And also, more important than any of that is asking yourself, what is contributing to the future I want to create? Is this actually forming part of some building blocks that will turn into this life that I'm visualizing, or is it just a distraction right now? And they're the same relationship, the same career, the same job, the same environment can sometimes turn from being contributive and positive to being negative and toxic. And sometimes if you catch it fast enough and if there's enough goodwill on both sides or all sides, you can fix things. You can improve things. Like you can heal a bad relationship. You can turn a bad job into a good job. You can do it with mindset. You can do it through communication. You can do it through collaboration. But there are times where, you know what, it's not worth it right now, because right now I'm wasting so much energy and so much confidence trying to make something work that clearly stopped working a long time ago. Now it's time to move on. And knowing when to move on is a very powerful thing. Don't move on too quickly because you'll regret it and you'll burn bridges prematurely. Don't move on too late because then you'll burn yourself out trying to withstand and withhold something that's not withstand and maintain, not withhold, maintain something that's not working. But really just be like, you know what, what steps can I do to fix it right now? Is it worth fixing? How was the past? How is it now? When did it stop working? Because when we identify that a path is not working, we also have to understand, is this a temporary thing? Because sometimes you're going to go through a rough patch with your work, your career, your friendships, your relationships. Sometimes there's going to be a small period where there's going to be a rough patch. Mm-hmm. And like, you shouldn't be like, oh my goodness, I'm going to quit because there's a rough patch. But you got to identify, is it worth it sticking through now? And is it something that's just temporary? Can I clearly see this problem started in this moment and this problem is going to stop when this is fixed and we can fix this together? Like if there's a clear path to fixing the problem, fix it. Great. But if you don't see a clear path, if you don't have a way to fix it, if there's no goodwill on other sides, if there's no collaborative spirit, okay, ask yourself, what alternate route can I take? And sometimes it's a very similar route. Sometimes it's just small changes. Sometimes it's a drastically different route. Sometimes it's big changes. When you do big changes, you're going to receive more judgment. You're going to receive more criticisms, and people are going to be more afraid. And you yourself might be more afraid too. You've made some big changes at times.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Big changes are scary. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to start with that. Big changes are super scary because you don't know what's going to happen. But when you make good changes for yourself, it's going to be rough, really rough at first. But throughout time, you're going to understand why this change was really good. Mm-hmm. And I guess you just got to be patient, because things are not always going to turn out the way you want it to when you make changes. And it takes sometimes months, years for for you to see a real change, for you to see what you wanted.
Most changes take time.
Yeah. So changes, literally, they take time and yeah.
No, that's something you got to be very understanding of. In the beginning, when you make a big change, you're going to receive more criticism, more judgment. You're going to have more insecurities. You're going to be more fearful. And there's going to be a period where you either give up or you learn and adapt. It's like sink or swim almost. Yeah. Like either you end up learning to swim or you end up sinking, right? But those big changes can be really powerful. However, it's not always big changes you need. Sometimes you just need small changes, little by little, that just add small little micro adjustments. Little pivot here, little pivot here, little pivot here. Okay, I'm going to adapt a little bit here. Here's an opportunity. Here's an opening. And it's like you're driving and maybe without a GPS, but you see, oh, there's an opening there. And maybe there's a path open there. And then you're just like adapting to small little things, not necessarily a big recalculation. And Manatee says, I think we have to have small dreams and move in that direction and also have big ones. But a little dream a day keeps the fear away. I'm a poet. That's actually a very cute quote. I like that. It's like a little dream a day keeps the fear away. Yeah, I mean, in developed development, we call it interconnected goals. We talk about this concept that it's very important to have long-term goals and short-term goals that are interconnected, where these short-term goals contribute to long-term goals. What do I mean by this? For example, Des has long-term goals of being rich, having a penthouse, possibly being famous, and like he has all these grand ideas.
Possibly?
It's because sometimes you're like, yeah, sometimes you know. So I'm saying possibly. But in general, yeah, you have dreams of being famous, right? You have all these big dreams, right? But then you also have smaller dreams, smaller projects. And some of them contribute a lot to the long-term goals. Some of them are a little bit of a distraction, right? And the ones that contribute more to long-term projects, they regenerate you more, they give you more confidence, they make you feel better. And the ones that are distraction, you end up guilt-tripping yourself. You end up beating yourself up. Like, I gave into this, I gave into that, I got distracted. You shouldn't beat yourself up. Just understand that the more you can interconnect your goals so that your short-term and your medium-term tasks, priorities, attentions, energy consumption, all of those short to medium term things that you spend your time and resources on are contributing and becoming building blocks for the future that you actually want. It's very easy to let family drama distract you, judgments, rejections, temporary failure,
relationships that aren't working,
terrible relationships. Like, it's very easy to let those things get you off track. Constantly remind yourself, I have this goal, I have this goal, I have this goal. What is taking me off track now? What is being causing a distraction right now? Why am I getting off track? Okay, right now, let me get back on track. I have to make these changes, these adjustments. And you have to be open to that, because there's nothing worse than basically being on a path that is taking you in the wrong direction, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes we end up in paths that not only distract us, they take us in the opposite direction. And let me clarify. It's okay to take some steps backwards to catapult yourself forwards, to get more momentum. Sometimes you got to give yourself some more runway. Sometimes, like, for example, a bow, you got to pull back the arrow to be able to shoot it forward. So sometimes a few strategic steps backwards can help you move forwards faster. However, if you find yourself constantly moving backward to sideways, but without any clear steps forward, that's when there are problems. And there's a comment here that someone does not agree with us in some regards. You also have to change the individuals you hang around with too. That I agree with. Negative thoughts and procrastination are almost contagious. I agree with that. Having people around you that want to see you do better also makes a huge difference. Yes. So, can you clarify in what part you disagree with? Because I agree with all the points you're making. Now, one thing that we do in Develop Your Element is we give different advice for different people in different situations. Yeah. So we always talk about multiple sides of the same coin, because I might need to hear different advice. Like her and I might be in a similar looking situation, but need different advice. Yeah. And for example, all of these comments are really, really important. Like, changing your environment is one of the best things you can do. Yeah. But there are some people that burn bridges prematurely, and therefore they need to learn to sometimes not let their temporary emotions destroy relationships that might actually be positive and might be able to be healed. So I say this because I know a lot of people are very quick at burning bridges and getting offended and causing fights, and then they might regret it later. So you have to know when is it time to make a change. But yes, in general, the people you hang out with the most are going to influence your level of optimism, your level of, your good choices or bad choices, because the people you hang out with, they rub off on you. And that is very, very clear. I don't think there's anyone in the planet that disagrees with that. I mean, it's commonly known fact. Like, it's your environment is going to affect your mental health, your confidence, your stressors. Like, for example, Des, a year ago, she totally made like a humongous shift. She left a lot of toxic friends and relationships behind. She moved several hours across the country to basically find herself and get away from a lot of toxicity and negativity. And it's one of the best decisions you've ever made.
Yeah, you definitely need to change your environment, because your environment definitely pretty much affects everything. Like the way you are, the way you think, and all of that. And yeah, don't go to the other extreme, like burn bridges fast, but also don't go to the other extreme of making excuses for everybody else. Yeah. You need to have a balance between, okay, when is it worth saving something? And one key thing that I always say in the lives is, does the other person on the other side want to change? Yeah. Because if the other person doesn't want to change, regardless of what you do, what you say, that person is not going to change. It's not going to work. If it's in a friendship or a relationship or something like that, um you need to know if the other person wants to change. Now, if the other person wants to change, willing to change, and you work together, it's worth keeping it. And if that person is willing to accept what they're doing wrong and you're willing to accept what you're doing wrong, perfect. But if the other person doesn't want to change, don't waste your time.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to take it case by case basis, and there's no one size fits all to all the problems in the world. But really, what you need is to have conscious awareness of, am I on a path that's working for me? Yes or no. What are the roadblocks? Is it other people? Is it my mindset? Is it my resources? Is it my organization? Is it my planning? Where am I getting stuck? And how can I recalculate my path so that I don't have so many roadblocks? How can I fix part of the road if needed? Like maybe there's part of the road that needs to be fixed. I can repave this, or I can fix this, and then I can go over it. Or maybe I can change the tires on my car and I can go through paths that are a little bit more questionable, a little bit more difficult. But like, there are many different ways to approach it. But the key is open yourself to see all the different paths and possibilities. Don't fall to the temptation of just always giving up on your current path and just flip-flopping and jumping around from path to path to path, because then you're never going to get to where you really want to get. Try to explore, is there value in saving this path? Yes or no. Is there an alternative path that's better? Yes or no. How can I open up a new path if I don't see one? How can I create the resources? How can I top up? Like, for example, with a GPS, you might have to stop for gas. You might have to stop at a hotel to get some rest. What stops do you need on your path? Because maybe there's some paths that are not open to you right now because you don't have the resources, nor the confidence, nor the energy to go through them. And just the idea of them drain you and stress you out because you currently are drained and insecure and in a bad place mentally. But the moment that you top yourself up mentally, emotionally, socially, and physically, maybe all of a sudden more new doors open up, new paths open up, and new paths clear and become available to you. So identify, what paths can you open up by regenerating? What paths can you open up by basically becoming a better version of yourself? And that sometimes requires taking a break. Sometimes it requires cutting yourself some slack. Sometimes requires asking for help. Sometimes requires reorganizing things. And that is very powerful when you do that. Like, for example, you've kind of changed a lot of your environments. You've changed a lot of friendships, and you made a ton of changes. And a lot of them have been quite positive, but there have been some that you kind of regret too, right?
Yeah, there's some changes that I'm just like, ugh, why? But most of the changes that I made were positive. If I wouldn't have made the changes that I did a little bit over a year ago, I wouldn't be here right now. I would be surrounded by all the negative energy and the toxicity I had with the people that I was hanging around with, a year ago. And then also something to keep in mind is when you recalculate your path, you're going to have a lot of people question what you're doing.
Yes.
You're going to probably have family members, you're going to have friends. For example, when I quit my job, one of the things that I'm sorry, Steve is doing some funny things behind the cameras. One thing that my boss told me before I was going to quit was, what are you going to do next when you get another job? You're going to quit that job when you no longer feel satisfied with that job. And then that's something that stuck with me, because people will say things to you like, oh, you've changed. Why did you change your dream? Why did you do this? And they will make you doubt yourself. Especially when my boss said that. One thing that I told Yannick was like, yeah, she's kind of like, maybe it makes sense. What am I going to do? Am I just going to go from one job to another? But she is, I did realize that, hey, I need to survive. Like, what I was getting paid was over the top.
No, it was criminal.
Very, very low.
It was criminal.
And I caught myself really fast, because one thing is, if I have a certain way of thinking, it's really hard for me to change my mind. So I was like, wait, why am I even thinking this? Like, the reason why I'm leaving is because I've tried to make this work since December. I'm getting paid very low and I'm not valued in this job. So I was like, yes, if I need to jump from one job to another, I'm going to do it until I find a job that values me, because I'm not going to be stuck in a
and you
job that
dedicated a whole
doesn't.
year there.
Yeah, and I dedicated a whole year,
So it's
and I'm
not like you just quit.
I was like, I'm sorry, but my time is very valuable. And if I don't feel like I'm being valued, that's it.
No, and you got to be careful, because there are going to be people in your life that are going to manipulate you to stay in their environment. Like, there are going to be people that might have, let's say, for example, you want to be a millionaire, you want to be rich, you want to have a good life, you want to have healthy relationships, like you're super motivated. But let's say your environment is full of conflict-prone people with low emotional intelligence and maybe with a lot of unhealthy habits, right?
Yes.
And then they will try to pull you into their unhealthy habits or their immature way of handling things. And you can do one of three things. Either you fall back down and like, okay, well, I'll just settle for this. 2, you try to inspire them and uplift them. And 3, you move on to a new path, a new environment that's a little bit healthy and more like less toxic, right? And it's not that like there's no validity in like that you only have to do one or the other. Like, yeah, I don't recommend almost ever going backwards, and to the degree of like falling into bad habits and bad behaviors and toxic environments, that one I don't recommend. But there are times where you can uplift and inspire people and bring them with you to a higher level and a better quality of life and a more stable life. And there are going to be times where you can't. And that depends on the other people. How ambitious are they? How dedicated are they? How willing are they to make?
Do they want
to? Like, do they even want to? Like, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can bring people with you. I'm a big fan of uplifting and inspiring people. Obviously, I work in personal development for something. I believe in the fact that people can make a change.
He brought me along with his journey.
Yeah, I mean, I really have this passionate, like, mission of making change in the world, one person at a time. And the reality is, there have been people that I've been able to help super fast, and there have been people that I've wasted years trying to help, and they've just destroyed my mental health and my confidence and my outlook for the future, because nothing was ever enough for them and blah, blah, blah. So that is something that you have to just be aware of, that different situations require different things. Steve says, I recalculate my route within the context of our website, and now we're making lots of progress. Yes, right now, Steve and I have been working a lot on the website for Develop Development. Right now, it's a mess because we're rebuilding it, but within the coming days, it's going to be awesome. We recalculated the route because now the market has changed. I can't do as much in-person stuff, if any. I can't travel as much because a lot of international borders are still closed, and people are still fearful for attending live events. So yeah, we have to do a lot more online stuff. So we're doing literally a website that focuses on selling digital courses, books, a lot of kind of online courses, Zooms, and things like that. So we're building a website that really is focused on that, and we're really, really happy about that. And Manatee says, one has the right to change one's mind 10,000 times a day. It's valid. Of course it's valid to make changes. Of course it's valid to pivot and readjust. You're not the same person today you were 5 years ago. Like, I would be shocked if you're the same person now you were 5 years ago. You have more access to information, growth. Like Des, for example, how many times have you changed your mind on what you want to do specifically?
I've changed my mind in the past, how old am I? I'm 23.
5 minutes, says Steve.
5 minutes. I change my mind like every day about everything.
Not about everything, but
most things. And in the past years, I went from being a doctor to being a dentist to being a fashion designer to being a teacher to like a lot of things.
And extroverts are more inclined to make more changes than introverts, because introverts value a lot of stability and predictability, whereas extroverts value a lot of variation and constant change. So just be aware that there are some people that their life and their primary goal is to have a dynamic life full of changes and surprises, and that's valid too. Continue.
Yes. I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying?
That you change your mind several different times, and
yeah, I
that's
mean,
okay.
it's totally fine. You don't have to keep one option. Like, it's okay to change your mind. I read this thing. I don't know where I read it. That throughout your life, you're going to be what you're good at. You're going to be what you want to be. And then you're going to be, I forget the last one, what it is. But throughout your life, you're going to be like three different things.
Yeah.
And I'm good at teaching. I'm good at being a teacher. I'm very good at it. Do I love it? No, I don't like love it like I do with fashion. But I'm very good at it and I enjoy it. But at some point I do want to be a designer. If I like, I want to be a designer. I have my store. And yeah, I do want to be somehow somewhere famous. But it's one step at a time. I don't have to be all of three things at once.
A lot of things can look like a distraction. For example, I studied tourism and hospitality management. Do I work in a hotel? No. Do I own a hotel? No. Do I own a restaurant? No. Do I want to? Maybe down the road, but it's not a high priority anymore. Why? Because I learned a lot of stuff when I studied that. I learned what I like, what I don't like about the industry. I learned a lot about customer service. I learned a lot about business. And I take all of that learning and I apply it now to the business I run today. But it was a huge pivot. It was a huge change. People thought I was crazy for quitting college like 2 months before graduation, because literally I was 2 months before graduation when
oh my gosh,
yeah.
I have an uncle like that too.
Yeah, it was literally 2 months before graduation, and I was like, you know what? This is not the life I want. I have already gotten out of this what I want to get out of it. I already know approximately what my future is going to look like, and I'm just going to take what I've learned. But what's that? And move to what? Tundra. Okay, Steve is behind the cameras, and he says move to the tundras, because shortly after that, him and we moved across Canada from Halifax, Nova Scotia, to Grand Prairie, Alberta, up in the north of Alberta. It was torture. It was hell. It was not for me. I love
snow.
No, you're not gonna love that type of, like, you lived in Oregon. That's manageable snow. Northern Alberta, like, my respects to people that live there. People get paid extra there just because of the torture of living up there. Like, that's a thing. Like, because most of the Canadian population live actually very close to the border, but it's a humongous country. The further north you go, the lower population. So to populate more of the country and to basically make sure that the resources of the country taken advantage of and blah, 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 they pay people extra to move further north. Like, that's a thing. And Steve and we moved there. He managed to stick it out. I bailed after 6 months and continued my road trip across the country and ended up in Vancouver. But yes, that was a big change for me too. Like, that's actually another good story. Like, in that moment, I was in a bad relationship. I had left college. I was finding myself. I was doing some sales jobs. And you know what? It was like, time for a big change. And then I was like, let's move across the country. Like, sometimes you just got to have a big change. And Manatee says, Steve, say hi on camera. He just got comfortable on the couch underneath his lap desk to work on the website. But I'm sure next time he stands up, he can peek in. And Kit Kat, our lovely cat, is on camera too, if you're watching on video. But yeah, so moving back to the conversation about this recalculating your route. First of all, you have to understand that your goals are allowed to change, but they're also allowed to stay the same, and you can have different goals and different routes that are independent from each other, but that complement each other. For example, Dez's ultimate goals have not changed. She still wants to be famous and rich and, have a huge penthouse, and like, all those things haven't changed. But what has changed? Her route. Now she has decided to move cities 5 hours away from her hometown. She has decided to change jobs. She has decided to start a new business. She has decided many different things that do not stop her from getting to her long-term goals.
Of being a fashion designer.
And being fashion designer too. And that's something you are being a fashion designer now.
Yeah, technically I am a fashion designer because I do design the things on my store.
And right now you're doing a dress for my mom. That's pretty
Oh
badass.
yeah, right now I'm designing a dress for Yannick's mom, and it's turning out pretty fun.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I saw it and I was like, whoa. I was like, you got to get into men's stuff. I need some suits. I have some English cashmere in the closet that needs to be turned into a suit.
I've never done men's stuff. I'm not really into it, but I will do it for Yannick.
What's that? Yes. You have to fix one of my jackets, one of my blazers, because I picked up a cat yesterday and it ripped in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. I always wear blazers around the house. Even working on cars, I wear blazers. It's crazy.
Yeah, you wear blazers everywhere.
They're just so practical. All the pockets, just forget style-wise, just practicality.
Sometimes it's so hot, and I'm just like, Yannick, why? Right now, it's really, really
it's hot. I got W to open the window.
It's really hot right now, and I have my little fan, and I'm wearing short shorts and a crop and a top, and it's the lightest whatever clothing I have, and then Yannick's here.
I am sweating. I am sweating. I won't lie. This is not a thin one. I am sweating.
A blazer, and I'm just like, how can you be here with that? And then sometimes he doesn't even have the window open or a fan. He doesn't even have a fan. I have the fan, and I'm just like, how?
Yeah. Yeah. No, but anyway, moving back to the main point. Right now, with the pandemic, a lot of people have had to, not by choice, but by just a humongous shift in day-to-day lives, had to recalculate the route. Some people are still stubborn and stuck, trying to force a route that's not working, wasting resources, wasting energy, having fights and conflicts, trying to force something that's not working. If that's you, maybe open up to see other possibilities. But anyway, what I was trying to say before we got a little sidetracked there is that you can have this same end goal, but there are so many different ways to get to that end goal. And sometimes you're going to take a scenic route with many more stops, with many more surprises, and everything contributes to it as long as you make the conscious choice of staying on track. You can really look like you're off track, but as long as you make a conscious choice of letting that period and those experiences help you to get to where you want to get, that changes everything. I've had to, sometimes by the reality of my environment, adapt to new plans. Sometimes I've had to create new plans. Sometimes I've had to take steps backwards. Sometimes I've had to sell things. Sometimes I've had to downsize. I've had ups and downs in my life. I've had times where I was living in my car, and I've had times where I was couch surfing, and I've had times where I was crazy in debt, and I've had times where I was lots of money and traveling all over the world. I've been up and down, and I luckily have that kind of optimistic attitude where I'm like, every experience is valid and contributes to where I want to go. So for example, I'm like, okay, every experience enriches me. Every experience gives me more knowledge, awareness, confidence moving forward. And right now with the pandemic, sometimes I just go back and I remember some of my toughest times and I go, you know what? I got through this so I can get through this. And that is powerful when you can turn these negative things into a positive thing in your mind. But that doesn't mean you need to overextend the negative things. So when the pandemic first hit, what did I do? Well, at first I beat myself up like crazy and I hated myself. That didn't help much. I got paralyzed trying to analyze options and not finding any way out of it. That didn't help much either. But then I started getting creative. And next week's episode is about getting creative. It's about maximizing resources. And I started reorganizing the whole office. We literally moved desks around and rebuilt computers and traded computers and built lights. And we just kind of built we built several studios within the office that just kind of unlocked everything. A lot of people in process thought I was wasting time and didn't understand what I was doing. But looking back now, I'm so happy we made those changes because there's so much less friction and so much less stress on the team. And another thing is, in your path, you might have a very defined path and most of the path is working. But maybe there's this little roadblock where you constantly are getting stuck or where you're constantly having drama or tension or failure. It might be a point of failure. It might be a weak spot. Your plan is only as good as its weakest link, and maybe there's one link that needs to be changed. That doesn't mean you need to recalculate the whole route. And identify where are those points of failure that you need to fix or change or tweak. And how can you utilize the resources you have right now? So, for example, right now, we have a lot of time. So we're using time to innovate and adapt to the situation. And we've had to do it more frugally because we don't have as much money as we did before. And those are things that in your life, just explore. What is my reality right now? And can I update my plan to take into account my current context? Because maybe you made a plan 6 months ago with a different context. And what do I mean by context? All the factors, variables, dynamics, situations that are influencing your actions, your thoughts, your social dynamics, your relationships right now. All of that is constantly changing. So you need to always be updating your plan. And if you don't update your plan, that will cause problems. Like, you gotta update your plan, because I made a plan a year ago that worked great for how things were a year ago for a little while, but then things changed so much that I needed to change it drastically. And about 5 months ago, I started making a lot of changes to my plan. And it was not because my end goal changed. It was just my context changed totally. The environment around me changed totally. The world around me changed totally. And I had to update myself. I had to make changes. Hey, Kit Kat. And that is okay. That's not a failure of your part. That's actually something normal. Life is dynamic. It will pull you in different directions. Just make sure that every direction it pulls you in and every surprise along the way contributes to where you want to be in the long run. If you're watching live, Kit Kat is in front of the fan and she's looking super cute. But yeah, like...
I'm back.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry. I'm probably going to be in and out because the chicken that I had this morning definitely did not
Didn't do you any favors.
Good. I've been nauseous all morning since I had it. So I'm
good.
probably going to be in and out. So it's definitely would not do well.
No, but anyway, we'll get through this fast. But yeah, so right now, identify, please, which stage are you in? Because are you stuck in the stage of beating yourself up? Yes or no? If so, move on to the next step where you take control over the situation. If you're still stuck blaming everyone, blaming the government, blaming conspiracies, blaming your family, blaming yourself, you're not going to take control, right? So move on to the next step. If you are currently in a situation of trying to figure out how to do it and plan, good for you. That's progress. But how are you going to make a plan? Well, make sure that you're taking into account your current context, not your outdated context, and make a plan that's agile and flexible enough to adapt to the times and to the surprises. Be willing to be surprised along the way. Be willing to ask for help along the way. Be willing to learn new skills. Make sure to plan pit stops where you learn new things. Here at the office, we have invested in several digital courses to learn how to produce digital courses, to edit videos with different software, we've invested in learning during this period, and we've invested in the office and in our tools, and we've built an office that works much better. So make sure that in your planning, you take the time to identify, I need to learn this, I need to improve this, I need to ask for help here, and these things together will help me be more prepared to where I want to go. And sometimes you gotta slow down a little bit, but to build a better foundation for the future. And sometimes slowing down is actually really accelerating, but it's that kind of runway that you're providing yourself to be able to get more momentum.
No, and sometimes pit stops are very important because sometimes we're going so fast and we're trying to get to our whatever goal we have so fast that we don't realize or take into consideration or stop and look at all the beauty that's surrounding us throughout the journey. Yeah. Like when you take pit stop, it's literally like when you're on a road trip and let's say you're coming from a certain city to another city. If you stop in the middle of nowhere and just listen to the birds, listen to the animals, look at the the nature, everything. It's quite beautiful. So pit stops are also important. So those can keep you grounded
Yeah.
and you can appreciate the beautiness, because sometimes we get so into the fact like, I have to do this by this age. I have to be here by this age. And maybe something you learn at a certain pit stop makes you, should I do something else? Am I going the right way?
Yeah,
And
expands your confidence, your happiness, and your conscious awareness of
yes,
everything that's going on.
yes,
And that's a very, very important point, that one you just made. Pit stops are valuable. They will regenerate you. They will recharge you. They will give you a top up. They will give you what you need to keep moving on, but also to enjoy the process more. Here's one thing that I want you to reflect on, and actually you need to reflect on this too. In personal development, there's this trend of being like, if the road is not difficult, it's not worth it, or everything that's worth it in life is difficult. And I do agree
at some
to
point.
some degree that we have to open ourselves to discomfort, because yes, failure, rejection, surprises, humility are part of the process, part of the road to success. That I agree with. And I do think that if you're ambitious enough, you're going to challenge yourself to step out of your comfort zone more often, and therefore have more difficult experiences, and you're going to take more risks. That will stress you out in the process. And if you get through it, you will grow and you will evolve, and it'll be wonderful. However, there's also a moment where we end up reinforcing that in our lives, where we are like, it has to be difficult, it has to be difficult, and therefore we justify things that don't need to be justified.
Especially relationships.
Yes, we overextend things that are way past the expiry date. We stay in bad situations and bad dynamics when they no longer are working, and that is a problem. Just make sure that you are not overextending your stay in places that are no longer kind to you and no longer contributing to your future. There are going to be times where you have to go through discomfort to build a future, and that's okay. But just ensure that you're not overextending the discomfort, you're not over-justifying the discomfort, and you're not over-attracting discomfort. I know I myself, sometimes I have fallen victim into this, and I've created problems just to feel like I have more value and more capacity, and that is not worth it. So just ensure that you're not doing that in your lives.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are in relationships that they've been in their relationships for years, and they don't want to get out because they say relationships aren't easy, this and this and that, and they keep creating excuses. And I'm just here like, I don't think it's normal for your partner to make you cry or make you feel any less than, the love of your life. And I don't think it's normal. And people used to be like, oh, that's because you and Yannick only have like a month and blah, blah. But wait a year or two. We reached a year and we still Yannick has not made me feel anything less than like the love of his life. And he does not ever make me cry like by offending me or by saying or by being mean to me. And I have friends that like physical abuse is even part of the relationship, and I'm just like,
they just fight,
and it's just fighting, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like those types of relationships are for like middle school, high school. I'm like, grow up.
No, and that's a thing that unfortunately culturally we celebrate drama, we celebrate these things, and we glorify it, we romanticize it. And unfortunately, in relationships, we romanticize sometimes romantic relationships. Every romantic movie almost, there's some big conflict. They separate, they split up, and we're on the edge of our seats. Are they going to get back together or not? It's because they're so good for each other, but in most cases, it's just terrible abuse and drama and conflict.
Like the movie we saw Kissing Booth last week, Kissing Booth 2, and I read this post about girls saying like, oh, the guy shouldn't have done this and that, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, babe, am I wrong to think that the girl was toxic? It was her fault for not communicating and being told repeatedly that there was nothing going on. And if she doesn't trust him, why are you even in the relationship? Like, yes, he has a past, but why are you even there? Like, it makes making these whole things up and finding things and snooping through his phone. And I'm just like, am I the only one that sees us as a toxic relationship? Like, I always tell Yannick, one thing that I don't like when girls get in a relationship is that, for example, I got in a relationship with Yannick. I know he has fans. I know he has to talk to people. I know he's gonna have a bunch of girl friends on Facebook. I know that. And I know Yannick is very earthly. So he has tons of friends. He has girls and boys as friends. And I'm just like, women that, especially in my culture, tend to want to change their partner.
Yeah.
And you can't change their past. You can't. I can't sit there and go through Yannick's friends list and just be like, I want you to delete her, because that's very normal. And especially the friends I have from high school, they still go through their partner's Facebook and they're like, I'm deleting this person. And I'm just sitting there, I'm all like, why are you even in a relationship if you're gonna do that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to accept that person with his path or with her past. And you're not going to want to change that person. And you have to trust that person. If you're not going to trust that person, why are you there?
Yeah.
Why are you even there?
No, and that's the thing. In terms of relationships, in terms of careers, in terms of life, we romanticize drama, we romanticize conflicts,
jealousy.
We justify it, we make it normal, we accept it as just to be expected. And we also, with gender roles, end up making like all guys are like this, all girls are like this, and we just kind of justifies, boys will be boys phrase to justify guys doing bad things, and girls, they're dramatic just to or girls are crazy just to justify girls bad behaviors and stuff. And the reality is, we need to put a stop to things that are not working. And we need to have the confidence and the curiosity to explore the possibilities. Exactly. But in order to do that, to have the confidence to explore alternate paths, we have to be willing to explore the unknown. And the moment you are stepping into uncharted territory for you, you're going to get more insecure, you're going to be more fearful, you're going to be more stressed, etc., etc. And that's okay. A little bit of short-term stress can help contribute to build the future you actually want. Be aware of that. There is sometimes value. However, you don't want to overextend the stress. You don't want to create chronic stress because of justifying things that are not working. And yes, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, but it only does so if you are consciously choosing to make it better. If you're constantly choosing to pick a path that is more in line with your goals and with more self-respect and mutual respect. And that's something that I also want you to reflect. How much have you justified in your life? How much have you reinforced certain negative things in your life? How much, also, for example, like going back to one of the comments earlier, like, yes, maybe you want to change individuals. Maybe you want to change your environment, and that's wonderful. But how many times have you, to try to stay loyal to your past and your roots, held on to something toxic?
Yes.
Just think about it. Just think about it for a moment. I know so many people that have held on to toxic relationships and toxic dynamics because this is where I'm from, this is me, and they make it part of their identity. Stop putting yourselves in boxes. Stop putting labels on yourself. Stop making yourself feel like, I have to go through this in order to be me. No, you can reinvent yourself a million times. Ask yourself, who do you want to be? Where do you want to be? I mean, that is really all that matters. Once you've identified those two things, then you build the relationships you want. Then you heal the ones you need to heal. Then you put distance with the people you need to put distance. Then you integrate the new friends and new people in your life that you need to integrate. But you make the changes consciously based on where you want to be, not where you are or where you were. I don't care where you come from. I care about where you're going. Your past is your past, and it made you who you are today. Good or bad, it's part of the bricks that kind of build, like it's part of your foundation. Okay, I get it. But just because it's part of your foundation doesn't mean that the floors that you're going to be building now moving forward are going to be that. Like, you can build a penthouse that looks very different than the bottom floor. Like, build upwards. Like, I don't know if that, you can picture that, but like, the thing is, in the beginning, you're going to have fewer resources. You're going to get creative. Sometimes you're going to have some difficult environments. And little by little, you're going to become more and more ambitious. Don't be afraid to leave people behind. Make sure to invite some of them to level up, inspire them to level up. But don't limit yourself because other people aren't ready to grow. If you're ready to grow, embrace that.
Yes, and that's very important. Don't limit yourself, because I know a lot of people that will tell you once you start changing, especially me. Oh, you left here. You think differently. You think you're better than us. You don't even talk to us anymore. And I'm just like, no, I just changed my circle of friends. I changed the people I surrounded myself with. I don't need people putting me down. I don't. Yes, I moved far away from home. I moved to a whole different another lifestyle, and yeah, I'm doing way better. But that all of that wouldn't have happened if I would have kept being the same person. In order for you to change, you need to change your personality as well. You need to change the way you think. So it's good. I like when people say, "Oh, you've changed," even though they mean it in a bad way. But for me, I'm all like, yeah, I'm glad I'm not the person I was before, because there's no way on planet Earth I would have gotten here if I wouldn't have changed the way I was.
No, and this is something you just mentioned, personality, and one thing I want to clarify: it's not about changing your personality to something that's not you. It's about embracing your personality and unblocking personality. So in development, we talk about, we have 6 different elements, 6 different personalities, that we are a mix of all of them, and in different moments, in different environments, we step into different roles and different ways of being, and we adapt to the world a bit. And we talk about how there's the biological nature, which is the most natural. It's how our brain is wired. It's the most comfortable. It requires the least amount of effort. That's the one you really want to embrace as much as possible. The societal one is the one where you adapt to your culture, family, friends, general environments, and sometimes you lose yourself because of it, but sometimes you are collaborative because of it. So it can go in a positive and a negative direction. Make sure you adapt out of generosity when you have the energy to do so, but don't lose yourself trying to be something you're not. And then finally, we talk about with passion projects, you unlock double battery and suddenly things that were impossible become possible, things that were hard become easy. And for example, with Des, one of the things that had happened is for many years, she kind of lost herself. And she has a fiery personality that's very ambitious, but everyone told her that her ambitions would basically lead to unhealthy relationships, that she would be unhappy, that like it would bring her a lot of problems, and that it was the worst thing in the world. So she's tried to stop being ambitious for a while and tried to settle a little bit, because they called her ungrateful for being ambitious, and basically telling her that by being ambitious it means she doesn't value the now, and that's not at all how it was. But for example, when she made her big changes, it was like, who am I? What things can I embrace more, and how am I going to be happier? Well, I have this fiery side that I need to embrace more, and that means sometimes I got to stand up to people. Sometimes I need to shine. Sometimes I need to be ambitious, and that's just something I have to embrace, because I'm going to be happier, more confident, with more energy, with more resilience, and it's just going to be better for me if I embrace that more. And that's why sometimes people are like, "Oh, you've changed." How many of you have entered a relationship trying to be something you're not, just to avoid rejection or judgment? I know entering relationships in the past, I tried to be Prince Charming and tried to be exactly everything that they painted in all the movies, and I tried to be exactly what I thought was what I needed to be. But funny enough, what happened? I couldn't maintain it for a few weeks or a few months, depending on how drained I was at the time. And then I would just snap, and I was like, okay, I can't sustain this. This is not me. This is not comfortable. And then I would let my biological personality out, but in a drained, insecure way, and it wasn't pretty. How many times have you done that? Or how many times have you created an environment where your partners or your collaborators or your family members didn't feel like they could be themselves, so they've tried to be something they're not to please you, and then they get so tired that they can't maintain it anymore, that they let out their real personality, but they let it out in a very bad way because they're so drained and insecure because of trying to maintain something that's not true, that's not real. When we try to maintain something that's not real, that's not us, we burn ourselves out. And that's why in Develop Development we say adapt short amounts of time in efficient bursts for collaboration and generosity, and it's wonderful. But don't lose yourself trying to be something you're not. And We both lost ourselves trying to be something we're not, giving too much power to judgment, too much power to rejection. And in your path, if you've lost yourself, now it's time to find yourself again. And don't be afraid to face some judgment and rejection when you finally embrace yourself, because people are going to start saying, you've changed, you've forgotten about it, etc., etc. No, it's not that you've changed. It's that you finally have self-respect to embrace your nature. And Manatee says, don't worry, we will make sure he behaves. I don't remember when that message came in. Do you remember what context?
When I told, I think it must have been when I said, I'm dating you and I know you have fans and I know you have to talk to people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, it's funny. Actually, our relationship is very unorthodox. Like when the pandemic hit, I told Des, yo, get on Tinder and start talking to people so that you don't feel so locked up or limited. I'm not jealous, I've already won. You're here with me. So like, do your thing. Like meet people, talk to people, like
to the point that Tinder blocked me.
Yeah, you got blocked from Tinder. I wonder what you're doing.
I wonder if it was you, baby, and you sent a message she's doing this, and then you're just so like, oh. Well,
what you didn't know is I hacked into your account and I sent some inappropriate stuff, and now they banned you. I'm sorry. Facebook dating is where it's at now. No, but yeah, and that's the thing. When, for example, she has a lot of things that a lot of people told her she couldn't get in a relationship, and now we're dating, and we both have similar ways of thinking that are unorthodox. They're not like the most common way of thinking, but we respect each other so much. So like we empower each other. We can be ourselves. And I've told Des a million times, you can say whatever, do whatever, and like I've got your back. Like I don't care what you do as long as you treat me right. Like it's that simple, right? And the thing is, you have to identify, where have you lost yourself? Where are you forcing a path that's not working? Where are you trying to be something you're not? And get back to being yourself. Be back to return to dreaming. Return to making life fun again. Identify where you've made things too heavy, too tense, too strict. And just kind of be like, you know what? I'm going to cut myself some slack. I'm going to take some breaks. Kit Kat is drinking my drink. Yeah, she's the star of this podcast when you watch it. But yeah, so like, it's really awesome when you open yourself to have the self-respect to stand up to people, not in a conflict-prone way, not in a invalidating people way, just in a, you know what, I found myself. I've rediscovered myself. This is my path. This is why I want to do it, and I'm going to go for it. That's powerful. And I want you to just identify in your life whether you can make some positive changes right now that get you closer, faster, get you closer to your goal, make you advance faster, or make you build better building blocks, because it's not always about faster. Sometimes slow down and build better building blocks. Build alliances and really build your future. But don't be afraid to make a fool out of yourself. Don't be afraid of falling. Don't be afraid of rejection or judgment. It's going to be part of your path whenever you make a big change, but make sure that you don't compromise your long-term goals. Make sure to recalculate, reevaluate, implement a lot of short to medium term goals that will build the environment, the resources, the confidence, the knowledge, the skill sets, so that you can get to where you want to get. And that requires taking the first step of choosing, now I'm tired of the status quo, being stuck, being depressed, being like feeling helpless. I'm going to take control. The people that are going to be willing to help me are welcome to join me in the process, but I'm not going to stop myself for anyone. And this is my new future. And that, the moment you make that choice, everything changes. And that's something you pretty much did a year ago. Yeah. So yeah, reflect on that, because I really think there's a lot of value in recalculating your route without needing to give up on your long-term goals. Just because your current path isn't working doesn't mean you've failed. Remember, when you fail or when you receive rejection, that is a temporary roadblock where you're going to learn and you're going to grow. It does not mean that it's a fatal failure. Only you have the power of making something a fatal failure. You have the choice of whether or not you turn a small failure or rejection into the end of the world. Stop doing that. Start seeing it as an opportunity to grow and evolve and gain more confidence, more knowledge. And yes, be willing to make a fool out of yourself. I have made so many terrible videos, so many terrible classes and things when I first got started to find my voice, find my confidence. And still, no one is perfect. to this day, I make a lot of mistakes. And with the pandemic, I've had to adapt a lot and experience a lot of discomfort. But the important thing is don't give up. You have a goal, stay on your path. But if your path stops working for you, recalculate your path. Don't give up on it completely. Just recalculate it, reevaluate it, find a different way to get to where you want to get. And next week, we're going to continue with this topic, but we're going to give you practical tools for maximizing your resources, because here at the office, we've been doing so many wonderful things creatively, rebuilding, reorganizing, restructuring, maximizing our technology, maximizing the things we have in the apartment. And I have a little promo that I'm going to share with you guys. I'm just going to move up to the computer, which is over there, to change it. In the meanwhile, do a happy dance.
You always say that.
Hey there. Are you having a hard time adapting to this new reality with the pandemic? Are you financially strained and having challenges to execute your plans? Do you have lots of visions for the future but no idea where to start? Well, I've been in the same boat adapting to this new reality after canceling a lot of plans, after adapting to a whole new space, a whole new market. And in the beginning, I got defeated. In the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, I have to cancel all my live events. I have to cancel this. I have to cancel that. Where am I going to make money? How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for that? And I got really, really stressed. I got really, really paralyzed. But at the same time, I started seeing many opportunities. And I also had more time than ever. Meaning I started learning new skill sets. I started watching YouTube videos. I bought some digital courses at the beginning of the pandemic, and I started learning many wonderful things. And I started going around my apartment looking at what things am I not utilizing? What am I underutilizing right now? And what things do I need to buy? And instead of buying them, can I build them? So for example, once I realized that all the in-person events were canceled and I had to do more online stuff, then I had to adapt to making better quality videos and making them faster. And one of the things that we discovered along the way was we need a better lighting system, especially after adding a green screen. Right now we're filming with a green screen. Actually behind us right now it's all green, and in editing we put different backgrounds on. And the cool thing is when you do green screening right, basically with the same set you can get many different videos out with many different backdrops. But doing it right can be hard, can be frustrating, and a lot of it is about lighting. And while I have spent a fortune on very good professional lights, it wasn't enough.
Oh, it's never enough.
So we started putting up garage lights that I had laying around, and it helped, but it was still imperfect. It was still really hard to key out the green screen. That's when we started thinking of doing, well, let's make some soft boxes. And then we went on the internet and found some guides and started making soft boxes. And I was like, wow, this works great. So with cardboard, with a bit of fabric, with an old bed sheet, all of a sudden we saved $100 by building a softbox instead of buying one. And it was more than 100 because we built like 6 soft boxes by now. So it's like $600 that we saved. Many things during the pandemic came up where it's like, oh, I don't have this, or I can't do this, or I can't afford this right now, or it would be irresponsible to do this. And I just started looking at what can I build? What can I piece together? And honestly, you'd be surprised how many things you have in your garage, how many things you have in your attic, how many things you have available to you right now that you're not utilizing because maybe it wasn't configured right. Maybe you didn't learn how to use it. You have many tools right now that you maybe are only using 20% of. You might have software in your computer that you've only learned how to use 5% of it. Right now you have more time than ever. So it's a good time to take those courses, to learn those skill sets, and to build new things. So I don't care how many resources you have right now. I care about how you're maximizing them or letting the lack of resources defeat you. I want to challenge you to build things. I want to challenge you to actually look at how can I build something out of this? How can I take this that I have right now that I'm not utilizing, and how can I make it better? How can I take, for example, this camera? We didn't use it much because it had a terrible battery. What did we do? Well, we found a way to plug it into power. We bought a dummy battery for very cheap, and now it never runs out of battery. There are so many things you can do with the equipment you already have that you're not doing. Because it's so easy. It's so easy to fall into the temptation of shiny object syndrome. I've been guilty of this when I first started on YouTube, when I first started the business, when I first started my team. I would go on the internet and watch reviews about all the cameras, all the lenses, all the lights, all the professional equipment. And I got lost. I was like, I always needed the latest and greatest. But I got so carried away in having the latest and greatest that I forgot about producing. And when I focused on producing, the tools no longer mattered so much. And I started figuring out how to use the tools in the best way. Look at the tools you have right now. Don't let your lack of resources be an excuse to stop producing. If you want to explore this topic further, join us this Sunday on our live transmission of our podcast, Development Unplugged, where we're going to be talking about this for an hour, hour and a half. All the ways you can maximize resources, all the ways you can basically take things you already have and turn them into something greater. If you're interested, tune in and I'll see you there. Have a good one.
Okay, so that pretty much sums up next week's episode. It's going to be a really fun episode because honestly, one of the highlights for us during the pandemic has been maximizing our resources. And I say highlights fully knowing that I've been really super stressed about finances and the changes from the pandemic, and I've beat myself up a million times. But the moment that I kind of made that switch mentally and really focused on what can I do, what do I have control over, what can I create, what can I adapt, what can I tweak, what can I piece together, what can I really do to maximize this time and maximize the resources, things became really interesting. And I'm genuinely proud of a lot of the things we built over the last few months. And I want to share with you guys that excitement and those practical tips and ideas and things so that you can implement some of those things in your life. So yeah, I mean, definitely if you're interested in maximizing your resources, getting creative and really surprising yourself of everything you can do with small amounts of resources, tune in next week because it's going to be an awesome episode. I'm really excited.
I'm really good at that myself. Yeah. I'm really good at maximizing resources.
No, you're super fan of things like dollar stores and things, and just like taking all these small things and turning them into awesome things. Like, yeah, I remember when she got her first desk with computer here at the office. She went into a dollar store and with just a couple of dollars, she bought a bunch of random things, and all of a sudden her desk looked like $1 million. I was like, how did you do that? I want that now. So yeah, there's so much value in learning to maximize resources. One thing is increasing resources. I'm a big fan of that. I'm all for being ambitious and increasing resources. But at the same time, if you know how to maximize your resources and at the same time increase your resources, that is a powerful combo. And when you learn to do a lot with little, everything changes. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunate, but part of my personality always needs the best and the best and the best. And this pandemic has been a humbling experience, but the best thing that has come out of it is being able to build amazing things during this period. And I'm really proud of that. So with that in mind, we will wrap up. We will invite you. Well, we've already invited you. So I guess we'll just say goodbye. Anything you want to add?